everyone, today we are going to present an empirical study of politico-economics interaction in the United States that written by Bruno Frey and Friedrich Snyder in May 1978. The purpose of the study is to examine the relationship between economic conditions and presidential popularity in the United States, assess the impact of economic factors on presidential popularities, and determine whether presidents use fiscal policy to manipulate their popularity. The study is delving into how government, economics, and politics interconnect in our modern world. As government play a vital role in our economic affairs and are increasingly held responsible by the public for our well-being, understanding how economics and politics interact is crucial. In the past, we used to consider the government as an external factor in the economic system. However, as we see, this approach might lead to significant errors, especially when constructing econometrics model. Imagine it in this way: if we wrongly treat government action such as spending as separate from the economic system, our model might not be accurate. Now, why is this important? Because what the government does significantly shapes our economic futures. Macro models that ignore the government as an external factor struggle to predict economic events accurately. Also, economic advice tend to miss the mark when it overlooks political consequences. For example, suggesting a deflationary policy right before an election poses a big risk of losing voter support. This is where political economics modeling comes in. It helps economists suggest policy that actually have a chance of being put into action by understanding how economics and politics interact. This study puts forward ideas about how the economies and the government, especially the central government, are connected. It had two main functions in this study: the popularity function and the reaction function. The popularity function shows how economic conditions affect government popularities, while the reaction function shows how the government uses policy to steer the economy. To test the theories, it used econometric tests with quarterly data from the United States between 1953 and 1975. In the model, both voters and the government aim to maximize their satisfactions, and the government's actions are influenced by various economic, political, and administrative factors. The analysis revealed interesting findings. When unemployment or inflation rise, the popularity of the government or the president decrease. Conversely, an increase in the growth rate of private consumption enhances popularity. Why does this matter? Because the government responds to change in popularity as an indication of future election outcomes. In times of low popularity, the government focuses on stirring the economy to improve the election chance. However, when popularity is high, the government can afford to pursue policy based on ideologies, even if they aren't always popular with the voters. While there have been studies on the impact of economic variables on election outcomes and government popularities, many lack solid theoretical and statistical foundations. This study stands out for providing a comprehensive understanding of the relationship between economics and politics, supported by analytical and simulation study. In the popularity function, voters assume to maximize utility, support or oppose the government based on satisfaction with its performance. Simplifying decision, voters attribute economic outcome to the government, assuming control. The hypothesis is government lost popularity with rising unemployment or inflation and falling consumption growth. This aligns with Kramer's 1971 study. Notably, voters don't consider alternative party actions, ignore underlying economic conditions, and focus solely on current or slightly lack economic conditions. Stick and Fair highlight this tendency in voter evaluation. Presidential popularity isn't solely shaped by economic factors, it also reflects the president's personality. These include a specific popularity level and its gradual decline over the terms, stemming from actions that alienate voters. Using a dummy variable that rises over the terms, except for Ford due to limit data, We detect popularity depreciation with a negative coefficient. For Nixon's, a special dummy variable WAT captured the confidence slot post Watergate with value 1, 3, 5, 5, and 5 from 1973 to 1974. Testing confirmed result stability with alternative depreciation value. This comprehensive approach enhanced our understanding of the factor influencing presidential popularity over time. This is the equation of popularity function. Popularity represents the percentage of the population approving or disapproving of the president's job performance. In equation 1, we expect negative coefficients for inflation and unemployment, thus is pi 1 and pi 2, and a positive one for consumption growth, which is pi 3. Each president has their own coefficient, pi d, and the Watergate variable pi WAT should be negative. Price changes are considered with a 1/4 delay, assuming consumers take some time to realize change in inflation rate. This is the regression of the effect of two economic variables on president popularity in the 1953 to 1975. Including all three economic variables simultaneously might cause statistical challenge due to their correlations. However, the correlation, like the one between unemployment and inflation, are not extremely strong, as indicated by coefficients around 0.25 to -0.56. This doesn't completely undermine the estimation of the popularity function in equation 1. But it's a good idea to take a caution approach by initially estimating the function while leaving out one economic variable at a time. The number in the table fit well statistically. To address potential issues like serial correlation, we use Cochrane-Orcutt's procedure to transform the variables. All economic variable coefficients are statistically significant at a 95% confidence level, aligning with our theoretical expectation. While each president's popularity level vary in equation 2 to 4, their relative size remain consistent. Kennedy consistently has the highest and Nixon the lowest. Notably, the joint popularity depreciation of Kennedy and Johnson align with the expectations and is statistically significant, reflecting the growing unpopularity during the Vietnam War. Eisenhower and Nixon in the first term didn't experience an autonomous popularity decline, but Watergate notably impacted Nixon's second term. The results from the table indicate that our theoretical model fits well and captures the essential structure. Specifically, all three economic variables significantly influence presidential popularity. This is a regression of the effect of three economic variables on president popularity in the 1953 to 1975. This table shows how all three economic variables together affect presidential popularity. It also examines what happens when we replace nominal RCN with real consumption growth RCR. This gives us a complete picture of how these economic factors work together to influence the popularity of the president. The analysis maintains a strong statistical fit. Comparing it with previous table, we can see that while multicollinearity impacts the report's statistical significance, it doesn't change the size of estimated coefficients. In a combined analysis, inflation and consumption growth lost their statistical significance. However, personality factors like Kennedy and Johnson's and Watergate depreciation variables remain highly significant when we use real consumption growth instead of nominal consumptions. There are minimal change in other coefficients and nominal consumption is likely preferred. This suggests a potential money illusions, where higher prices due to inflation are mistakenly seen as indicators of better qualities. In summary, a precise specification of a popularity function and likely and erection functions must consider both economic conditions and the individual personality of each president. The quantitative impact of economic factor is significant. A 1 percentage point rise in inflation reduced presidential popularity by half to 1 percentage point. A 1 percentage point increase in unemployment lead to a decrease of more than 4 percentage points, and a 1 percentage point growth in nominal consumption raises presidential popularity by approximately 0.7 of a percentage point.
Let's come to the next topic, which is the reaction function. This function shows how presidents influence the economy to keep them in power, or increase their popularity when it comes to re-election, or use their ideological view. In ideological view, it is assumed that the government use public utility to their maximum benefit under various constraints. Governments seek to maximize the welfare of their citizens, and they benefit by achieving their goal, which can be called ideological in this context. Presidents are subject to three types of constraints on their behavior. The first is administrative constraint. The government bureaucracy not only serves the president's wish but also try to maximize its utility. This causes members to resist change, especially financial one, because it might affect them. Therefore, constraint may be modeled by assuming that last year's expenditure determine current expenditure. Next is economic constraint. There are two types of economic constraint. First, government is tied to the structure of the economy. Therefore, the parameter of the government reaction function implicitly reflect to the specific structure of the economy. The second is budget constraint. How much revenue a government receive determine the budget they can spend. However, the government can also borrow money or print out so that it can spend more than tax revenue. Tax revenue is therefore not an absolute constraint on expenditure, but it is still very important because the United States appear determined to use a balanced budget. The last constraint is the re-election constraint. In the framework of politics, the most important constraint on the government behavior is that politicians want to stay in power. This is because they can only do things while they remain in office. Popularity is therefore important in this regard because it is convenient to use as a measure of the outcome of a future election that may occur. So it is assumed that the president can be assured of re-election if he reach or exceed his target popularity share or pop star. For simplicity, pop star is held constant at 58%. The government will have different strategy according to the two situations as follows. The first one is the state of popularity deflects. The current popularity of pops is less than the target or pop star, and the president seems that they may not be able to win the election if there is another election. Therefore, they will attempt to increase the public spending and employment in the expectation that economic conditions will increase their popularity with the vote and win re-election. From the popularity function done earlier, it is known that lower unemployment and higher consumption growth rate leads to increased popularity if the increase in inflation rate is not that high. It also concludes that government reaction to the popularity defect is much stronger when the popularity gap is large. The magnitude of change in government expenditure and employment is therefore proportional to pop minus pop star powered by 2. Moreover, the government will certainly react much more strongly when a popularity defect appears shortly before an election date than when it appears a long time in advance. The amount of time before an election is reflected in the dummy variable TBE, which takes the variable 1, 2, 3 to x, where 1 is the longest time variable, which is the beginning of the second half of each presidential term, and x is the closest to the election, which is the 1 quarter before election day. And another situation is the state of popularity surplus, when current popularity is equal to or higher than what is needed for re-election, or pop more than pop star. The president can put his ideological view into the practice. The variable for each president ideological is equal to 1 and multiplied by the available room. Calculates as pop minus pop star powered by 2. It is possible that some president ideologies tend to limit spending. With the previous principle, the regression equation can be done as follows. We can see that t represents to current time, and because we divide the period into a quarter, T-4 refer to data for last year, and T-1 therefore meaning a lag of 1 quarter. As a result, independent variable include last year INSTR, last year government received, last quarter square popularity district, time before election, and each president ideology. Next is the dependent variable. The instrument or INSTR is divided into three groups. GX or non-defense exhaustive government expenditure. TR is government transfer to private household, and job are the number of civilian government jobs. These three are strategies that the government will use to increase its popularity. After dual regression, we can see that all coefficients related to the political factor are positively related, and the most important determinant, the popularity difference, is significant for all three instruments considered. However, from the result, we can see that economic conditions influence the president's popularity, and this encourages to use policy tools. As we can see, the coefficient of popularity difference is positive, indicating that when the government knows that its popularity is below its target, they try to use strategies such as raising expenditure to increase their popularity. Moreover, the time before election show that presidents are likely to significantly increase exhaustive government expenditure before election in accordance with the principles. And the coefficient associated with the ideological target variable are mostly negative, but in many cases it is not statistically significant. It shows that the ideological of most presidents will result in limit the expenditure. In addition, a regression was performed is divided according to the period of the president. The popularity difference appears to be highly significant in all but two equations, Eisenhower, GX and job, and the same is true from budget constraint. All presidents are influenced by their spending habit by upcoming election. It can also be seen during Nixon's time that his ideology was greatly reduced in spending due to his being a conservative. Coming to the last part, concluding remark, the stimulation performed from both the popularity function and the reaction function give a reasonable result. The popularity function explains most of the variance, indicating that unemployment, inflation, and consumption growth has a strong influence on a president's popularity. The government take their popularity very serious and try to use various economic tools to control it. When they are afraid of losing an election, they will use strategy to stimulate the economy and increase their popularity. And those two will get more intense as election day approach. We also know that when the government is confident about the popularity and outcome of the next election, they are ready to act according to their ideological view. Thank you for your attention.